So for anyone that doesn't know you, Emily, although they should from our last live we did very recently, which was unreal, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so obviously my name is Emily. That's as far as what everyone knows. And I just said to you earlier, I hate this question because I never know what to say. Partly because I don't like to define myself as anything of what I do, like me as an individual. So I find it really hard to say, who am I? But I would probably say that I'm the most hippie, disciplined person that you meet because I'm the best of both. I'm very strict and rigid, and I have a lot of standards, and I like to work hard. But I'm also this super emotional, spiritual girl who, loves to be outside in nature. So I'm a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So obviously with that in mind, like I'm sure there's in the world of sort of like health and fitness, I suppose you've got this. I may answer my own question here. The element of that holistic and sort of hippie side of it, and yes, you do have that structure side of it. Is that what sort of made the appeal into this industry for you? Because you've done a few things, right?
I think my appeal into this industry, it's really my core belief of why I'm put onto this earth is that I'm here to help other people. Before I was a PT, I was like a caregiver to old people, and before that I was in the service industry anyway. Like, so there's always been something about the act of service. So I guess it was just inevitable that I ended up in this place eventually. But yeah, I mean, I came to become a PT because I help people. And then I just happened to become very interested in movement and health. So those two married together pretty well. And then here we are.
In terms of sort of like your, because everyone always starts coming into the fitness industry based around training themselves, whether it's like training for bodybuilding or training for strength. Like, how did you get into, like, let's say physical activity, because it could come from something else?
I mean, I was always an active child, and my first sport was football, and I played football for 5 years. I tried basketball, but my trainer never showed up to practice. So I guess I got bored of basketball because we never had any practice. And then I did some martial arts when I was in my teenage years, but then I really fell in love with dancing when I was 16, which took over my life in terms of how I felt doing movement. Like, for when I was younger and I did football, I showed up to practice because that's where my friends were. I showed up to practice because it was in a way, a discipline. It was, my mom paid for it, so therefore I had to show up. So it taught me a lot of good lessons. But when it came to dancing, it was out of my own pocket. It was at my free time. At this point, I was studying my A-levels, I was having a job, and I was dancing. And all I was doing was dancing. So movement became very much part of who I am, I think, at 16, even though I've always been very active. And then the gateway to that was when I moved to London. I couldn't afford dancing because I didn't take any student loan and I was working all the time. So all of my money went to either living in London or paying for my university degree. So I signed up for Fitness for Less. And there we are, the rest is history. And how I actually became a PT was, I mean, I'm giving my life story away.
Go for it. I love it.
Well, at the end of the third year of my university degree, I didn't have any money, or I had a little bit of money left. And I came to the point and I was like, I don't want to be a waitress and a bartender, and what am I going to do? So there were two options, and one obviously led me to become a personal trainer, which was to do my diploma and then start working. But the other one was actually to become a stripper. So I actually reached out to a strip club. I got the dress, I got the shoes. They were like, you can come in and talk to the girls, they're really nice. I knew exactly where I was going to work. And I mean, I didn't actually go to the audition, but there was a real, like, okay, I don't have a lot of money left. I don't want to be a waitress. I have a real interest into helping people, and I do love training. So at the time, one of the trainers at my gym, he came up to me and he asked me, are you in the industry? And whether that was to hit on me or whether that was a genuine thing, because I was always at the gym. Then that just sparked the idea of, actually, you can do this for a living. You can also make money from things that you love. I mean, because I was aspiring to be a musician, and making money as a musician is, it's not the easiest thing to do. So yeah, so I think it was a little bit by chance, a little bit by recognition that I actually was quite good at what I was doing, even if it was just training for myself. And yeah, the rest is history.
So like what with obviously with that crossroads in terms of where your career was going, and obviously the kickstart of going out and finding employment at this stage was the fact that you didn't have any money. And obviously going into PT would have meant getting a diploma, mate, and maybe like investing money to make money back down the line. And what is quite an like insecure industry, not mentally insecure, but just in terms of like it's hard to make a paycheck, people tend to struggle. Like that's a massive, massive gamble when you were struggling financially, when you had the option of going down and becoming a stripper. And I don't want to say that's easy money, because that no job's easy money, but that would have been something where you might not have had to invest that money into it. It wouldn't have been as much of a gamble. What has it made you go down what is probably in some ways the more initially difficult route?
I mean, I've always had my own insecurities, right? But I've never ever doubted myself and my ability to make anything work. So I never doubted like I never thought, hey, this is not going to be working out for you. I mean, you know me and like everything that I've done in my life. And yes, like, as I say, like I've had my own fair insecurities when it comes to like myself, but that sense of core belief of I am capable of making anything work if I work hard enough. And also taking a chance and going, and I always had this thing, the worst thing that can happen is that I move home with my mom. I'm not going to end up on the street. The worst thing and if I have that mentality of cross-checking, what is my biggest fear here with doing this? Okay, but what if it doesn't work out? Okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay, the worst thing that's going to happen is that I don't make any money and I have to go back to Sweden and I live with my mom. Funnily enough, I'm now in Sweden and I live with my mom. Temporarily, but it's kind of funny.
If that's your worst case scenario, it's not bad. I've met your mum, and your mum is excellent. Like that. If that's your worst case scenario, I can see where you get that core belief.
But you know what I mean. So instead of looking at, oh my God, what if it doesn't work out? It's like, okay, let's just go for it. And I genuinely think, money comes and money goes. And if I'm going to spend the last bit of money on something, it might as well be on something that I believe in and want to invest in, rather than going and, I don't know, drinking it all away because my life sucks, because I didn't make any money, so rather take a chance on something and work really hard for it. And of course, like we all know, as you said, it's a tough industry to get started into. I think I was lucky for various reasons, because I never really struggled financially. Like for some reason it took off quite well, quite quickly, and I didn't make like a whole lot of money, but I made way more money than I did as a waitress. I always thought I was balling, so
yeah. I think that's something that like anyone that tends to succeed in this industry has to have that deep down core belief, or that at least that deep down passion. Like in a way, like we've had similar-ish upbringings, although I'd start as a PT. I wasn't a stripper, but I went down the route of being a waiter for Hindus. Your butlers and the buff, arse out, cuffs on.
You were a stripper. Come on, you were a stripper.
It's as close as I can humanly get without taking the apron off, really, isn't it? And like for me, that was like I could have easily got a job in recruitment. I had clients, I had friends. It was like, oh, you can't do this job. And like, for me, it was that core belief, like I need to stick this out and make it work. And these jobs allow me, like I used to go like start work at just before 6 o'clock in the morning, finish at 8 p.m., go and work at a nightclub doing promo until 3 a.m., Monday through Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, I was, arse out in front of Hindus, and then back at it on Monday. And it was just sort of like this, it needs to work. It didn't even cross my mind as like, is there a better route? It's like, no, this is just what I need to do to make ends meet. I mean, with yourself and that I suppose the topic we're talking about is how to be a badass woman, and this is sort of like the foundation of it. Like with that, you're saying you've always had that core belief that it will always work out for you. Where do you think that's come from? Like, how do you think you've grown up with that?
I actually don't really know, but I think I've always been quite an independent person. Like I always hear the stories that when I was a child, like no one was allowed to feed me. They just had to give me my bottle, and I would sit on my own and just, drink my own bottle. So I think the whole thing about like independency was it's always been a big, important thing for me. But I mean, I grew up in a place where I had a single mom working night shifts, and I saw my dad every other weekend. And so I guess we were all taught in a way that we just had to take care of ourselves, right? And I mean, as I said, like my insecurities came from, okay, what if I'm not good enough? So that for me, becoming good enough went being the best in school. For me, being good enough, like looking for validation, it ended up being a proactive thing. It could have been a whole different way. Like I could have become the girl who would, I don't know, sleep around with everything and everyone. And like I could have been that girl as well, because I have friends who became that. Right. And I grew up in a neighborhood where most of the people I hung out with 15, 20 years ago, they're either dead or in jail. So, it was a tough neighborhood that we grew up in. And then I think when I ended up being bullied in sixth grade, that's when I just realized that I'm on my own, I mean, I had one friend. She came to me like an angel. I always say she came to me like an angel at the right time, because all of my other friends just turned on me and started bullying me. So, but I think the whole thing of like, you can't necessarily rely on other people. You have to make it work for yourself. And yeah, you can sit at home and feel sorry about yourself, but you can also go and fucking explore things. And I think maybe that's why I took off, a little bit, because I realized that I had to go and create something that I wanted to have, because I didn't have it in my surroundings.
I think it's amazing that we look at those things, and I'm not going to out and say that being bullied is a positive experience, because obviously, of course.
But I think it is in a way. I mean, no child deserves to be bullied, and it wasn't a nice experience, but I see that as a very much of like a catalyst of who I am today and why I am who I am today. So like I'm grateful for all of that shit that happened in my childhood, because without it, I wouldn't stand here being stronger. So I always say this to all of the people that I speak with, like, your wounds become your superpower. They do. But you have to see that they taught you that lesson, and you need to not wallow in the pain, and you need to actually see that actually I can overcome anything, and have that as a proof as well. Like, wow, look, you were bullied, you didn't have any money, and you this and you that, and look at you now. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty fucking badass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you look at that, the trend of like, you don't often meet somebody who's been mega successful in something that doesn't have a story of something, whether it's a struggling like childhood, whether it's a difficult area, whether it's most comedians have been bullied and that's where they've come out and become. But then you learn more from your mistakes, you learn more from the hard times than you ever will like the good moments in your life. Like I'm similar backgrounds to yourself. Like I've had a number of friends turned on me, and I've been bullied through various points of my life, and it's taught me to take ownership of my own path and my own happiness, which has given me a lot. It's taught me how to communicate with people better and forge better relationships. And if I got complacent in that, if everything was handed to me, would I have those skills that have potentially gotten me where I am today, got me the relationships and the friendships and that I have today? Probably not.
No.
So obviously going into this, we kind of went on a really good and really interesting tangent of sort of like how you sort of got into the industry. So you took that first job in terms of being a personal trainer, and like you said that you came in through dancing into the gym. Like, how did you feel like, how did that end up going into sort of more bodybuilding-ish training, and how was sort of like the dancing and the sport influenced the way you train, maybe even today?
Well, where do I start there? I'll start with the dancing influence. I think what it taught me is the whole thing about lines, right? So when I think, and it's kind of interesting if we think about how we think about training. So for me, when I think about my body, it's about lines and expressions. And so even when I do bodybuilding training or any type of training, it's still very much this sensation in the body of of an expression of something. And I can't really explain that to someone, but I always say, like, training for me is the most, like, movement for me is the most spiritual practice, because it allows me to really just connect where my arm goes and where my hip goes and I just think that's fantastic. So I think the dancing, because I became very, because I was dancing 25 hours a week for about 3 years. So I was drilling. And I mean, sometimes we would spend hours just doing pirouettes in the same direction. So the whole thing about skill acquisition, it started back then, even though I didn't understand it intellectually, but I understood what the practice of something and what it's supposed to look like to be accurate. So then going into the bodybuilding, I mean, when I started PTing, I never thought of myself as becoming this body transformation coach. I just wanted to help people move better, feel better, and be a little bit healthier. That was like my incentive to start with. Obviously, when we started working together in our old workplace, the environment shaped my experience and my thought process, right? So that's how I got into bodybuilding. I never thought about competing before we worked together, and I wrote about it just the other day in my Facebook group. You know, your network, they really have such a large impact on who you are, what you believe in, your values, and everything else. So it was inevitable, starting to work in a place like that, that I would step on stage. It was almost like fated, because the goal was never mine to begin with, in terms of like, oh, I want to be a fitness girl. Like, the act of stepping on stage just to be judged by other people, that never really appealed to me. I mean, I'd been on stage many times because I was a dancer and then I was a singer, but that was to convey a message or to express something. But just the fact on stepping on stage to be judged and compared to other people, I mean, in my life, I don't really do that. So why would I want to do that? Anyway, it happened. So the bodybuilding became very much, I mean, I love it today. Like, I love where my life has turned into, and how I look at training and everything that I've learned from you and from my other mentors, and, you know, just the doors that opened up in terms of, oh, this is what you could study here, this is what you could study here, this is the person you could follow. Like, I don't know if I would have met all of these people if I didn't have that as a base. So bodybuilding, yeah, I guess now I just see everything as training and connection, in a way, like physical connection to myself, and whether that gives me more muscles or stronger legs or whatever, then that's what I love doing. And, you know, hopefully I still grow. I mean, I still love to change my body, but not because I feel like I need to change my body. It's just the byproduct of just loving the challenge every day.
So there's so many things in that are worth unpacking and really interesting. And like, I will touch on the network thing first, but I think it's really important to me. And it's brought us on this call, and, you know, like, and my love for, you know, this has been, as we've spoken about well before I launched this podcast, that this has been a passion project of mine for years, and through various reasons, red tape, bureaucracy, whatever else, I've not been able to do it. But I can look at it, and I can look at that and go, I will judge, you know, my past experiences and the restrictions that were placed upon me as to why it took so long to do this. But I can also look at this in a positive way, that I have an amazing array of interesting people that I can then have these great conversations with, that I can learn from, that can impart wisdom to others, that can help take, you know, your message out to a greater number of people. And I know this, you have your own podcast that you run as well. And I think if I hadn't had that network, if that hadn't to shape me, I don't know whether, you know, where would I be right now? Like, I wouldn't be in Hong Kong. That's for sure. When it comes to network, because that can go both ways. When someone, obviously, like, you know, we've all seen it in terms of someone wants to, whether it's getting themselves in shape or whether it's improving their business or whatever aspect it is in life, the network can be something that pushes them, or a network that can be something that cripples them. When you kind of get people that come into working with you and you feel that they're not in the right network, or they're not making the most of the network, how do you help them in those sort of environments?
You mean other than coming into my tribe, and you mean their own network?
Their own network. But talk about that as well. Like talk about how the community you've created, because this sort of goes hand in hand with that.
Mm. I mean, it's a very tricky one. And what I usually say is that you don't want to just throw the people that you love that might not be elevating you in an area just because they're not elevating you. Because we have to pay it forward as well. So I might be the person that lifts other people up, but I will need people that lift me up. So it's not necessarily like, oh, I need to disregard everyone because I need to be at the lowest one so I can grow the most. Of course, if you want to do that, you're going to be the most successful one, because if you're only surrounding yourself with successful people that are smarter than you, then inevitably you're going to just rise to the top quite quickly. But life is not really that black and white, I think. But I think it's just a matter of like deciding on how much energy invested into the people and how much of other people you actually allow to take your space and your energy. Because ultimately what I always say is it's your responsibility to safeguard your space. And if people bring you down, then that is your responsibility to accept and be happy with accepting that, or do something about it. But that could be eliminating how much time you see someone, making very clear boundaries about this is what I'm doing. You don't have to support me in this, but if you're not going to support me in this, then we cannot speak about this. Because if we speak about this and you have an impact on me that is negative, then it's going to bring me back down, whether I want it or not, because I care about your opinion, because I care about you. So it's a tough one. But I think it's at the end of the day, we all have to just look at what am I willing to listen to right now? Because the thing is, I just say you need to repeat the same message over and over again so that it keeps getting deeper and deeper ingrained to you. So you have to be cautious with what you listen to, basically. And then just listen more to the positive stuff. I usually say, because people ask me, like, you're so happy all the time. That's usually what I get, like, oh, your name is Anger, but you're so happy. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm not happy all the time, but I choose to be happy, first of all. It's my choice to be happy. But I always say, I kind of feel like I'm just digging my head into the sand whenever there's negative shit, because I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm fully aware of the shit that goes on in the world. I know about terrorism. I know about men's abuse to women. I know all about all of these things. But if I look at it all day, every day, and engage too much into it, then it's going to really suck my energy out of me, and I'm going to be a negative person. And I don't want to be a negative person. I'm not a productive person when I'm negative. So I kind of say, like, yeah, I stick my head in the sand and I just pretend that it's not there. I know that it's there, but I'm just going to pretend that it's not there. And I'm going to focus on the other things and the other people. So
I think that you've really summed it up like nicely in terms of. And I think the interesting thing you mentioned there is it not being as simple as that. We often hear like life advice and personal development it's overly simplistic in its nature, and it's like you need to get rid of all the people that are negative in your life. Like, what if that's your mum? What if that's your wife? Like, what if that's one of your children? You're not going to just like disregard those people. And I think when you start to accept that, like, people are complicated, and like there's good, there's bad, there's challenging, everyone has their struggles, their insecurities, their strengths, their weaknesses. You can take in a way a more macro approach to looking at that influence of the people around you in your life, because as I say, you can't get rid of those people that may be negative, but you can affect how that you perceive that, and like how that affects you.
That is not correct, because you can choose to not engage with your parents if you want to, but most people don't want to make that choice. So then the question is, what do you do with that? Yeah. And this is the thing, right? And I to be very honest, I've had a very testing relationship to both of my parents at various times of my life, and it's been really, I've been to the point where, like, actually, do I want these people in my life? I've been there. Right? And it's a very heartbreaking moment, because you go like, do I really want to cut these people off? But also, do I really want them to allow me to feel this way? But here is the thing, they're triggering me, but it's my emotion. So if I allow them to trigger me, it is still my emotion. It's not them. And also we have to look at accepting people. Like acceptance is a huge part in life, because you have to accept that you cannot change anyone else. So if you want to have these people in your life, you have to accept their flaws and their good stuff as well, because otherwise you will feel dragged down, drained, suffocated, whatever it is. So, and with that you can have compassion, right? When with acceptance comes compassion, because I then can go further and go, okay, but what must have my parents have had for childhood or relationship to them, their parents, or you can go down that line and go like, for them to be this way.
Yeah,
Right?
acceptance is say so it's a really good term for it. And I suppose as well, it's when you realize people are complicated. You see people trying to. You spoke earlier about if you surround yourself with more successful people than you, you're inevitably going to be brought up. But like successful is subjective, and that person that's maybe brings you up in your business may tear you down in another aspect of your life. And like when you have that understanding that no one is a completely 100% well-rounded human being, and you can have that acceptance and you can see where they put place in your life. And as you said, it's how that affects you, and it's your actions and how you perceive those things make a bigger difference than necessarily who they are. And that comes from, I suppose, taking that step back, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's where we want to look at, as you say, like what is success to the individual. And I think if you know what you value and what you treasure in life and you can live according to that, then you'll be successful.
Yeah.
Every day you can be successful if you're living true to what you believe in and what your values are, and living with your virtues, then you're successful every day. Like the rest of the success, say the financial success or the whatever success, that's gonna come. But like one side of my family was crazy rich. I didn't live with that side of my family, but they were crazy rich, but they were also the most fucking sad people. Right? So what is success? Well, I look at my mom, and again, she's she's not even a nurse. She's like, say that she's a nurse. I don't know the word in English. And she fucking loves going to work after over 40 years being fucking underpaid. And she loves going to work. She says it every freaking day. I get to go to work tonight. Oh, okay, cool. That is fucking success for me. Then it's unfair that she's been working in the healthcare industry for over 40 years and she hasn't, like, her salary's ridiculous. So, but still, what is success?
There's something that you mentioned there I thought was like that. Well, your mum technically mentioned there that I think is absolutely brilliant and so important when it comes to learning to battle through these and become badass. She didn't say, she says, I get to go to work. In the same way, instead of I have to go to work, I get to go to work. And the key thing there is that the language we use really, really shapes it. You mentioned earlier about repeating something until it becomes like reality. And I think, like, how often when you work with someone, or maybe things from your past, when you've noticed the words that they are saying or the words that you have been saying has affected what the actions they're taking, and how do you sort of reframe that language, and what sort of things do you tend to look out for in terms of people's language that may be holding them back? I know that's a big question.
Yeah. Everything. I listen, and my job as a coach now is just to listen, because you will tell me everything I need to know, not by what you actually say, but how you say it and the words that you choose, and I will challenge you on that. I've had a lady, she used a particular, like, she always used, I will try and I will do this, and I'm like, will you do it or will you not do it? Because there is no try, so if we're listening out for words, and I can't remember what she was saying, but she basically said a lot of things. I'm like, so you don't really know that you can be successful because you don't believe that you can be successful. And as soon as you can get someone to understand that their language, it's like a mirror into what they believe, or like a glass into their mind saying, this is what I believe, then I can challenge that with them and go, all right, but what would happen if you believe this? How would you act differently? How would you carry yourself differently? What choices would you make on a daily basis if you believe that this was possible? And from there we can become a lot more productive. So language is huge. I love language. I love communication. I love language because it just yeah. I was going to say something inappropriate here, but yeah.
I don't. I can put a bit. We've already swore. We've got an E rating. If you want to say something inappropriate, go for it.
Well, I will save it for another moment.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you hit now. I think language is so important. I think it becomes such a broad topic as well. Like the word "try" is one I always bring up, but I think it's not even sometimes in the words used, but just sort of the things you notice by what people ask for. Like I mentioned on a previous podcast with Alex Searle about clients asking for recipes, and I also say that's always a pet peeve of mine. Not because I'm against recipes, but there's this mindset of you're finding a barrier, finding a reason why I can't do something. And when I see someone ask for recipes on day one, it's very different to someone going, "Hey, I've Googled these recipes. Which one's good?" I'll go, "Oh, that one's good, and here's a couple more." But like often it's people overcomplicating the process, setting themselves up for failure, and it's shown that they can't go, maybe I'll go and have a look for some of these. It's that almost of I'm wanting this to come to me, maybe because I don't believe I can do it myself. And I think it's so that can go off on a tangent itself, but it's just amazing how almost every sentence that we say has a reflection in terms of how committed we are, how much work we're willing to put in, where are our priorities, how we're spending our time. And I think if we can unpack that, there's a lot of things we can do.
Yeah, I mean, where do you even start? I think what I do, I lay down the framework quite quickly for my clients now. I say I'm not here to hold your hand. That's not what I do. I'm way more qualified than to hold your hand and to tell you everything that you need to do. You're a capable grown-up person, and capable grown-up people are resourceful. And then you can come up with your resources. I obviously give people a lot of things. Like, I don't want to say like, "Hey, sign up to this," and I'm not going to give you shit. That's not at all what it is. But I'm saying as the journey progresses, it's not my job to constantly nag about you having to hit your step count. My job is to ask you, why is it not happening and how could it happen? So I don't like, I don't even do weekly check-ins anymore. Lo and behold, I don't do weekly check-ins. I've changed the way I structure my coaching because weekly check-ins, it's not a team thing. It's you asking someone to give you something. At the end of it, you're going to give them feedback, and which is part of the coaching experience. But oftentimes I found, at least, and this might just have been my experience, is that people would have a problem on a Wednesday and they wouldn't say anything until the Sunday. I'm like, all right, so let's just not waste time and be proactive. And when you need help, I will be there. I'm not going to be the one just reading through like, yeah, this week was shit because this is okay. Let me know when it's shit so that we can actually work through it. So I can help you there and then. So I'm taking a way more hands-on, proactive approach with my clients. And as I say, like I've created a tribe, so I have group calls, group check-ins, a lot of group things that we do because I see the value in having a network. And as I say, you are the net worth of your network. So if you have just as a coach, that's one person. But if you have 50 other people in your tribe, all working on themselves, you're going to gain leverage from them. And you're going to want to show up a little bit more because see other people show up. So that's what I came to terms with. Actually, it's not just me and them. It's we all of it in this together. So that's my own way how I decided, because there was a time in this last year when I was like, how do I want to actually run my business? Because right now I'm just kind of copying what everyone else has been taught me how to do it. So I just took a moment and I thought, like, how do I want to create my business so that it works for who I am, what I want to do? And this is what I came up with. And at this point, it's fucking awesome. I love it. So
I really quite like that approach, and as I agree with you that the community aspect is huge. And as you said, you're creating that network for people that they may or may not have in their lives, but they will always have it for you because you can create and cultivate that environment. So obviously, with your tribe is mainly an online environment, and often you find sometimes with online where you had a one-to-one client, if they came in and they were overwhelmed by something and they were they were disengaged from the progress, or they're having a bad week, or these things are an inevitable part of any change. You could see them, you can see their body language, you can see the language they use, and you can sort of pull them aside and have these conversations and get them back engaged. With an online format without that accountability for your check-in, like, how do you get it so that people don't sort of like hide into the shadows? Or how do you get people to encourage to ask questions and be committed into that process, when it can quite easily, like, people always struggle with Facebook groups to get people interacting? How do you encourage that community?
Well, I wouldn't say, like, the thing is, for me, they get daily feedback rather than weekly. So it's not that they don't get feedback in, like, I check in with them daily. Some people, they don't need to be checked in on daily. They probably will come to me when they need it. But for most people, I talk with them every day. I consider them being like my family, So even if it is a quick, hey, how are you doing today? And they say, like, oh, it's fine. Okay, cool. Or if it becomes more of a thing, then we will dive into that. So it's not like we don't do feedback, because feedback is essential, right? How do you know that you're going in the right track? And like, I give my clients specific, I look at their training, I go like, I think you can push higher here, I think you can. So there's a lot of actually feedback. And in between having this conversation, it's always an open thing. And I always say to them as well, and this is the thing I tell them, like, look, I cannot read minds. I'm pretty freaking awesome, but I can't mind read. So if you're actually experiencing anything, then I need to know it, because again, I can't just assume. So if you're quiet for 2 days, I don't want to sit here and make assumptions that you're having a bad day, because that's not my job. My job is to, when you come to me, when you take that responsibility and come to me, then I can help you. But if you don't come to me, at some point I will be like, hey, is everything okay with you? You've been a bit quiet. But I'm not going to be down your throat every day and go like, whoa, what's happening? No. I like to think that people they become leaders, right? They become proactive, because that's a trait that everyone needs, is a proactivity. So part of it is to enable people to be proactive. I can't just be the one dictating everything. I need them to be proactive. If they have a big week coming up, I'll be like, cool, what is your game plan? I'll ask them first, and then we will be talking about it. I'll be like, okay, do you want me to look at the menu with you? And then we have that, because I like people to think for themselves. Because at the end of it, when they leave, if they are not independent people, can do this on their own, then I still have failed.
I 100%. And that's obviously in a certain way that's how I try and structure my like coaching practice as well. I create education, I create a communication structure where I have with clients that I don't want a client to renew because they need me. I want a client to renew and stay with me because they enjoy the process, they get an experience, they enjoy the training, they enjoy the feedback. And like, the best results I've ever got are the people that have embraced that and met back. Like a great example, I've got a coach in Dubai that's working with me recently who's had a phenomenal start, and we've actually made an increase to his calories. And instead of like doing the structured, here's an email, here's a check-in, here's the general response, I gave him a bit of a video feedback just to run through it and just give him a praise of how well he's doing. But it was a back and forth on a message going, not just add 50 grams of carbs here, because he's a coach, he'd get it, but like, so impersonal. Who thinks of like, one of the things in the bodybuilding world, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we've got into, we think of food as numbers rather than think of food as food. And food is part of our culture. Food is part of our society. And I'm like, what are you really enjoying in the diet? Cool. When are you hungry? Cool. Would you prefer this or this? Yeah. I was like, is there an optimal way of doing it? Maybe. Does it matter that much? No. What's the most important thing? Is enjoying his diet. And I gave him food where he wanted it most, where he felt he was going to like thrive with it. And that wouldn't have happened if my check-in format was pre-recorded, pre-templated, done. There's got to be that level of like coaching, I suppose.
Yeah. No, yeah. I agree. So, yeah.
So obviously you with your coaching process, because I've seen you from the first day you set foot into working together in London, and I've seen you develop, and I've seen your coaching process develop as you developed. Like there's something I think I find quite really admirable about your business, is that it's not business, Emily. The two have always been so intertwined, and you've been so open and honest with the way you portray us on social media, which is really inspiring, by the way. And how is your business? Like, how is it set up now? Because it, like, when we worked together, it was coaching, it was body transformations. I presume you just don't do that anymore. I presume you have a genre all to itself. So what is it that your tribe does? What is the aim of the tribe?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out in words what it is that I actually do. But I mean, body composition is a big part of it. People still come to me because that's what I'm known for. And people will always seek out what they think they want rather than what they need. So I just facilitate everything else. I like to call myself a life transformation, where you get the physical package, but it's the inside that we work on. That's kind of how I would phrase it, but maybe not so professional. Because yeah, we used to do body transformation. It would be very hardcore, and I mean, I was always me on the gym floor as well, and I can take on a lot of characters. And I think that's the beauty of having an ego, is that you bring out the ego when you need the ego to come out, but that's just to convey a message. I think at the core, I was always still me, and I was able to maybe convey that message through my ego to the people that needed my ego to hear it. So having some really high corporate business CEOs, like, I couldn't just be this wishy-washy fairy tale girl who sits here and sing Kumbaya, because that's kind of my soul. But so my ego will come, and I guess even when we sit here and speak, I'm direct, I'm this, and that is, still me. So as you said, I don't know, since stepping off the gym floor in 2018, I mean, I had to undergo a lot of personal development myself, rediscovering a lot of who I was, what my values were, how I wanted to actually serve people, because until this point, I was serving people through the lens of someone else. I was giving people something that was expected to give them, whether or not it was for their benefit or not. And I just decided that that's not what I'm going to do. I'm always going to have the best of someone in my intentions. And yeah, and that here we are. But I mean, I still get really good results with people. I just don't necessarily put it out there on social media, because I don't want to be portrayed as the body composition coach. You still get the body composition with me, but it's just a very small aspect of it. So if I go there and only post good before and afters, then I'm never going to get out of that cycle of something that has been really tough to break away from the start, right? So it's definitely been tough, because how do you show yourself in a world where it's very saturated? How do you stand out? And I can only do so by being myself, and whoever needs to hear me, they see it. They see me and they will say, hey, I want to talk with you. So it's been definitely a good couple of years of trying really hard to break away from what people think of me and my capabilities to what I am today, and then how I serve people. And it's still an ongoing thing. And it's definitely gone a lot better than it has like a couple of years ago. So I am moving in the right direction, and I feel really authentic in my message and how I serve people and who I serve. I don't work with everyone. Not everyone. I'm not everyone's style either. So, and I will be very honest with that. I will send people away if I think that I'm not the person that can help them as well. So, yeah, it's been a long journey. But just to tell you about like why I think I'm too lazy to try to pretend to be someone that I'm not. And maybe that comes back to the whole thing about the bullying. And at some point, being me wasn't good enough for everyone else. So I had to be me so that I didn't lose myself in this horrible world of bullying. And then coming out of it and just being, actually, I don't need a tribe. Like, I don't need to have people liking me for me to fit in. I always became this little chameleon. And even when we worked together, yeah, sure, I hung out with a few people, but I was really, I'm more of this person that I will float to anyone and anything and just make anyone feel heard, I think, because I think that's important to me, to have people feel heard. So yeah, I mean, I maybe it's just laziness. I couldn't bother to pretend to be anyone else. And I think it's a scary thing to always be yourself. And maybe I'm not always myself. Like, I can't say that I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm not always myself. Like, how do you know when you're pretending? I don't know when you know. But things like what I post on social media now, and like I do so because it's scary to post certain things. Because if I can't do this, then how can I teach someone to be themselves? How can I like allow people to feel like they can be themselves and actually be completely fine with being that person? So I mean, yeah, I'm not always comfortable. I mean, the last thing I posted, not maybe the last thing, I was fucking nude on my social media. I was completely naked, and I wasn't shredded, which, you know, my ego was going bing 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 bing, you shouldn't do this, and what if no one, like, people are going to judge? And I'm like, well, fuck if people judge, because the right people who needs to see this picture and read that message, they're the one I'm speaking to anyway.
100%. And that was a great, you did my segue for me into that. So obviously, like you mentioned, you know, obviously learning to be yourself, and I suppose like making people heard from from the position of you coming out of your own insecurities and things. And you definitely have a knack of making people feel heard. And I can speak from how much you've helped me over the last year, like breakthrough challenges I've had. And it's just through that, being able to listen, making you feel heard, and being direct. Like I probably had, like, of all the people that's helped me over the last year, you've been the one that's not been scared, in a good way, not been scared to tell me that's bullshit, that's what you need to hear, not always say what I want to hear. And it's always been beneficial. But to get to that point you mentioned about being able to be yourself, and you mentioned coming from a place of bullying, and you mentioned your own insecurities a number of times at the start of this recording. How do you go from that to being able to post a photo of, I'll say softer because you've always been lean, but to be able to post a softer version of yourself in the nude on Instagram? So, you know, I wouldn't say comfortable. I don't know what it was like to post it, but like, how have you gone from one to the other? How have you worked on yourself in this way?
Oh man, that is such a big question. How much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, look, I was insecure about everything as a child. Like I was first I was too skinny. And then all of a sudden I had stretch marks. And then I realized that my nose was not straight. And then I thought my nipples were too small. I didn't have it not big enough. Like, there's so many things. And then one day I remember it. I realized, I'm like, why am I keep thinking these thoughts? And I was like, but I don't want to feel bad all the time. So I need to just stop thinking about these things that I don't like about myself. Yeah, I could get a nose job. Yeah, I mean, I could get a boob job. I could get all of this, but it's just in my head. Like, it's my thinking that makes me obsessed about the things that is so-called wrong with me. So it started just with that realization of, like, I'm keep thinking the most, and I was like, I'm thinking the most ridiculous thoughts about myself all the time. And I was like, who does that? And I realized that everyone does that. So that was maybe part of it. It's like, okay, so what happens if I don't think these thoughts? And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm not going to think these thoughts. And then eventually I realized, I'm having a good time. Like, I was the prudest person. Like, I wouldn't even shower in the girls' room. Like, I was super shy. Like, so to have gone from that girl to being able to go out in the woods with a strange man who I met just on the day to take that photo. Yeah, it's been a journey, but I think part of it is also getting older, right? Part of personal growth is just experience and going, why the fuck do I even bother? So I mean, I'll probably be the coolest 80-year-old, because if I'm like this now, I'll be I don't know, out of the world, not bothered about anything. So yeah, but I mean, all of these things, and the growth comes from looking at your insecurities and actually question them, and then actually maybe seeking answers from someone else and realizing that most people are pretty similar. Yes, it might not be that they have a crooked nose, but they might have, like, colored, I don't know, big ears, or so, you know, just to understand that, like, everyone is insecure or has had insecurities. And I still do it, like, because it came to a point where I was actually, I get more obsessed about doing the things that scares me, in terms of, I mean, I probably wouldn't skydive or something like that, because that shit's just crazy. But the thing, I would probably, if we say like, oh, let's go skinny dipping, I will still have the little girl in me reaction of like, no, I can't do skinny dipping. But I will still do it because I'm like, I refuse to be trapped within my own thoughts and not experience. So that's the thing, like, I still feel all of these things, they still show up, but then I go, do I want to be confined by my thoughts? Or do I want to live my life freely and experience life to the fullest? So it just comes back to that, you know, am I willing to have, because we all have intrusive thoughts, they come every day. We all have insecure thoughts every day. But I always say, do I want to experience my life based on my insecurities, or do I want to free myself of them? Because the fact is that once I've taken that clothes off for the skinny dip and I've jumped into the water, I've forgotten about that insecurity. Right? So, and all of a sudden I feel proud and invigorated, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. And then maybe a thought come back up, but then, you know, so I think overcoming things is just about feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah, I think going back into what we're saying about network, it's that thing that I've almost become known for saying on every conversation I've had, is that the answer lies somewhere in the middle. And we talked about with network in terms of it's understanding when your insecure thoughts come into your head. It's like on one hand, focusing on your strengths and understanding your weaknesses and your insecurities don't define you. You can, you know, like limit your weaknesses, maximize your strengths, but knowing that any growth also on the other side of it comes from going to those points that are uncomfortable, that we aren't quite happy with, that there are insecure moments. And as you said, like acting anyway. Like I know from my personal experience, the things that one of my biggest insecurities, my dental appearance, my teeth, it's never been particularly great. I've had like every dental surgery you can have under the sun. I've had stitches and cut open ear to ear. I've had like root canals and braces and all this kind of thing. And they're still not great by any stretch of the imagination. So, and for a while, I've had it where I in places where I wasn't promoted because of my dental appearance, which is fucking madness. And yeah, exactly. And but as I got older, and it said age is a big thing. It's like, yeah, just on one hand, like I understand that my dental appearance doesn't define me. It doesn't define who I am as a person. It doesn't define me how good I am as a job. It doesn't define how attractive I am overall. It doesn't change how I interact with people. But at the same time, I shouldn't be neglectful of, say, at some point maybe wanting to change that, which is also okay. And I suppose that sort of like almost goes on to a little bit of the next question when it comes into body image today, which is prevalent in both genders, but certainly so in women when we are on two ends of the camps. It's that desire to look like the size zero model, and it's the, you know, almost demonizing people for wanting to improve their body shape. Where do you sit on that debate in terms of someone that is a person that's been comfortable at not both ends of the spectrum, but in a softer version of Emily and really ridiculously lean, and coaching women that are all battling these body image issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough one because it's been conditioned for generations, right? It's not even a real-time thing. It's in the women's DNA. I mean, it's in men's DNA as well, but like the conditioning of what a woman isn't supposed to be and look and do, and like that's deep shit, right? And I think the biggest thing that people need to realize is what you just said. We are not our appearances, but our appearances is the effects of what we do. We are not our actions, like we as in the core. It's just something that we do. It's a behavior. Behaviors can change. You as a person, you don't change that much. And there is a wrong thing to fat shame people. Let's put it there. Fat shaming is not the right way to get people to change. In fact, it just creates more stigma around actually changing. And people who are really trying as well. Like, honestly, have you not seen all of these like Instagram clips where they will just say horrendous things to women at the gym, or even men as well, maybe, you know, go home and why are you here? It's like, it's not working anyway, or, you know, you should be putting something else on, you should do this from home. They say so many mean things. But I guess the world is a really mean place. But I think, you know, encouragement for sure. but then also focusing on the whole thing about health rather than focusing on like, what do I need to look like in order for someone to like me? Because for me, and this is how I look at my own attraction, like, yes, I know that I'm an attractive woman. Well, I know that now because I've conditioned myself to believe so. I didn't always believe so, but I really believe that my attraction doesn't come from how I look, which is why I'm okay to live in the fuller me and the leaner me and everything in between. Because I don't, well, at least this is how I think, that people don't look at me and go like, wow, that's the girl I want to bang. I think people look at me like, wow, she's quite interesting. There's something about her, right? They might have the initial reaction like, yeah, that's that one, I'm just going to bang. But as people approach me, I intimidate the shit out of those guys because they don't know what to do with me. And the guys who know what to do with me, they will actually approach me and actually come into my sphere. And I'll probably intimidate them at some point, right? But I genuinely think, like, if we're talking attraction and what you say as well, I mean, you're engaged, for God's sake, you know, should that be like a metric of attraction? Yeah, it should be, Brent. And then, like, how do we then measure attractiveness? It's such a subjective thing, and I think attractiveness is an energy that you produce, like that you send out to people. And yeah, so I always focusing on getting people to understand, like, I work with people core values, what they want, what they actually want, not what they believe they want, like what they think they should have because society told them so. And then actually working with people at that level of going, okay, you as a person with no limitation, take any limitation away. What do you want? How do you want to feel? Who are you? And let's start working with that. And then the result is going to be that you're going to want to take better care of your body. You're going to want to make better choices for yourself because you love yourself at the core. You have forgotten that you love yourself, but at the core, you're always going to be your most important person. You just forgotten.
Yeah, I also think there's multiple roads going into what you just said there. It's almost like there's multiple roads to Rome. And that sentence there is that understanding that, like, whether, you know, you say you have to be like get healthy to lose weight rather than lose weight to get healthy. And I generally I like that sentence, but the approach to get there, like, some people, if they haven't got that confidence and they sometimes losing that first 5-10 kilos is enough to get the momentum to start the road of self-care. But often I found the people that have ended up getting the most effortless results are the ones that have embarked on bettering themselves before coming in and starting this process. Like, you remember May, the ridiculously strong deadlifting woman I used to have, and she did therapy prior to starting with me training. And it was the most effortless client in a way that I've ever had, because she was mentally in the right place. This was about bettering herself, it's being a detective mindset. It's about the process, less so than the end result. But regardless whether you've come into it as you need a bit more hand-holding and we need to get you something to believe in yourself, or whether you come into learning how to believe in yourself to get there, the end result, whenever I get a result, and it's probably the reason why a lot of people transition from purely being body composition coaches to trying to work with people's lifestyle and things like this, is that I don't think I've ever had a result where the thing I've been most proud of is the client's physique. Ever. Like, I always talk about a result I had here in Hong Kong with a guy called Winston. He was recovering from pancreatic cancer, and he fairly overweight, didn't look after himself at all, didn't make time for himself. And I found his Instagram, and I was like, Winston, like, if I looked at this Instagram, it'd be like you'd look at pictures of his wife. There's not one photo of him. And I went, people would look at this Instagram and think, she's got a weird name. Why is there no photos of you on here? He goes, I don't like taking photos of myself. And as he got lean, he started taking selfies. I was like, right, okay, we're booking a photo shoot here. And it wasn't to showcase my work. It wasn't to showcase abs. It was, right, okay, we've got a guy that didn't want to take a photo of himself to be able to take his shirt off in front of a cameraman. And then a week before the shoot, the gym's closed and everything locked down, and it's like, what are we going to do? And if my goal was he needs to look good during a gym shoot, that would have been it. But because my goal was to put a lid on this new person, this new character, this new confidence that he had, it's like, fine, we'll do it in the middle of Tamar Park. We'll do it right in the middle of the densely populated city in the world. And like, that's what I'm proud of. The fact that his house is inconsequential. Another great example of one of the most proudest photo shoot pictures I've ever had with a client was someone that we both trained, Angelica, right? And when we got her to a photo shoot, like, she was the leanest, she'd been, she was happy, and like all that was great, and like things like this, but she wasn't the most shredded client I've put on stage, but the one I love is she took a photo of "I am strong" on the back of her forearms, which is an accumulation of both the work that we've both done with her. And I'm like, that's what I'm proud of. You can even see her stomach or her shoulders or her arms. It's her forearms and her head. And I was like, that is the thing that sticks with me. And like, however you get there, it's like understanding that abs don't make you happy, whether it takes that to get you to the point where you look after yourself, but it's not the purpose of this.
You know, it's funny that you brought that up, because I've actually arranged a photo shoot in London for all of my clients. And I say to them, look, we're going to do a photo shoot. It's going to be in the gym. But the goal here is not for you to be the absolute just most shredded. It's, unless that is your goal, to be shredded and ready and do that. I said, you not having abs doesn't exclude you from the experience of taking a photo shoot in the gym. So I'm like, you're showing up there because you want to celebrate your body and what you've done for yourself in this journey. I don't care. Like, so I'm arranging this thing. I think we're like 15 people, if not more, coming together. We're all doing a photo shoot. And some of them won't even be, as if we were to work from our old standards of workplace, they would have probably been where they just got started. But the point here is that who decides the rules of what you can do in life? No one does, unless you believe there are rules. I have one woman, she was like, I don't think I can do it, because she came from where we used to work, and she got not the best treatment, and didn't really come out of that place intact, if we say that. And I said to her, like, look, this is not about being lean. This is about something else. The photo shoot has nothing to do with what you actually look like. And the photo shoot it really is that, you know, how you just come do something scary, something that you think that you might not be cut out for, and you do it anyway. And you see that actually you're going to have a really good time. And yes, of course, like, I put standards on my clients. I want my clients to be their best version, whatever that means for them. And I want them to care for themselves so much that they will take action for their health, for whatever goal they have. But it doesn't make them less worthy of anything if it takes them a long time, or if it takes them a short time. It doesn't make anyone any less worthy if you're always trying your best and are willing to learn as you go. You know, finding answers in learnings. Fail. If you're willing to fail and look at your failures and go, actually, I'm learning something every day, because every day I'm not perfect, but that day I can learn something. And then I realized at some point, okay, maybe I am full of shit. I will call out bullshit. And, you know, I'm not the one to shy away from calling out bullshit, but I do so because it's out of love, right? Because I know that you have more in you that you believe that you have. And I know that you deserve better than what you might be willing to give yourself. Which is why I think, you know, but I always have to say, you know, that time when I said I was going to give you tough love sometimes if I had to, and then it comes. So I always have to like paraphrase it and go like, are you ready for this? Because now it's going to come. And then I have to actually be the best version of myself at my highest level for them to hear the message. Because it's not about like, hey, you're not meeting standards and we set this and we set these goals and what are you doing? It's not that. Like, hey, what's actually going on? How can I get you to be that person? And then actually hearing people, okay, cool, this is what's going on, let's revise, let's do this. So I just, in my coaching, it's like, let's take away all the fucking rules and create our own, and if those rules are limiting, let's take those away as well.
I love that, like the you know, in terms of like it doesn't matter how long you take as long as you're only, you know, you're learning. And I'm in a way, I've found myself recently, especially since I've done a lot more interviews and I've listened to a lot more podcasts, because as I said, this is a passion project. I am here to take down Joe fucking Rogan. I am not here to play about with it. So I've been studying interviews, and I love sound bites and I love quotes from people. Not these motivational tacky quotes, but just things where you get an insight into somebody's experience. You said earlier on about how life is a formulation of experiences and the lessons we learn. For sake of on my next podcast in the evening, I will turn the light on so you're not looking at a dark Simon, you know. But there was something that was said on a recent webinar from both of our friends, Nathan Johnson, about you know, like dieting mentality that stuck with me. It's very similar to what you just said, was all we have is practice. And I love that. And I love that, stuck with me, that soundbite, like all you have is practice. Because like it doesn't matter what this person does over here with a completely different set of circumstances, a completely different network, as we spoke about before, completely different insecurities, a completely different upbringing. But you're working with this set of foundations and groundwork that you have, and a process, if we use something from the Waking Up weekend we've done, up until this point. Now, what can we do to practice taking more action, to eventually learn to make better actions and better processes? And I think that's the stuff that, like, one of the things I took from that weekend. And for anyone that listens and doesn't know what this is, me and Emily have both attended something that our good friend John Georgeson helps out with, called the Waking Up Weekend, and where you will go through a little bit of understanding the mind and understanding some processes that deal with this. And I think we came into this in a very similar position, where some people we went into was like blown away by this thing. And I think it's one of the most important things I've ever done, but not from directly the breakthroughs I had on the weekend, but how it made me reevaluate and rethink a number of instances in my life where I struggled or I was paralyzed by fear. And I always use the example, and talking about attractiveness earlier on, of I was terrible at chatting to the opposite sex when I was younger. I put everybody's purely on quote unquote just appearance physically, and I can't speak to that person. That person's too attractive. That's too intimidating. I'm too scared. And like what I learned, and this is obviously well before this seminar, but it was a dating coach who told me about a girl can only be 5 out of 10 on purely physical appearance alone. But then the other 5 of attractiveness is made by how interesting they are, how cool they are, what they've got to go about. And just that change in strategy was the thing that made me go from, no, she won't talk to me, to, okay, cool, she's good looking. Let's see if she's also really interesting. And then over time, I failed forwards. I practiced. I got turned down more, but I also got more success. And eventually it was like, this isn't that scary. But if I hadn't changed that way I think, if I haven't changed that thought process, if I hadn't learned how to practice speaking to people, I don't think I would have ever got there.
No, but that's the thing. You can't grow unless you try. Like if you're avoiding the task, you're never going forward. Ever. So yeah. I forgot that we went to that one together. But you know what? And I agree with you on that one. I wasn't there and I didn't have these grandiose breakthroughs, but it did spark some thought process. But then saying that, I went to something similar when I was living in Sydney. And at that moment in time, I was ready. Like, it's kind of like sometimes you have to read or hear the same message over and over and over and over and over and over again. And at some point you go like, oh my God, it's like I've never heard that before, but I was hearing it all along. And it's kind of like that. You only get the messages and the learnings when you're ready to have them. And sometimes that's the thing. You need to do the same mistakes with your diet over and over and over and over and over again until you go like, okay, now I don't need to do this mistake again. Or now I don't have to feel guilty again. It's like, oh, I need to sidestep a few times to realize that I don't have to feel guilty when I sidestep. How are you ever going to know whether you're going to feel guilty unless you sidestep?
Yeah.
You won't. Because you have the all or nothing approach. And then when the nothing approach happens, you just go completely haywire and like go, wow. And then you disappear. And then you come back at it again. So instead of having the all or nothing mentality, you just go like, okay, I needed to learn again. There was something I needed to try again. And then little by little, you start changing the meaning of the experience because you're conscious and you go, actually, what's actually happening here? Why am I doing this? Rather than, wow, I did it again, going like, but why is this happening? And then what else is coming up? Right? Ask better questions and you shall have better answers. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. And I suppose like if you don't open yourself up to making mistakes, you don't ask yourself those questions. You don't find those questions, and in turn, you don't get that experience that we're speaking for. And like, this is one of the things I find is that if there was a top 5 list of things I see when people start trying to embark on changing their physique or changing their mindset or whatever challenge it is, it's people like being afraid to fail so they don't act. And you mentioned it a second ago, and I like it's changing that mindset to, yeah, but if you don't act, you're always going to fail. Like if you're trying to avoid failure, you better start acting.
Yeah, but in your example, if I don't talk to that girl, I'll never know if she wants to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right? If I don't apply for that job, it's a definite no. When I applied for our old workplace, I wasn't an old PT at that point. And I was thinking, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to apply anyway, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? That I don't get it anyway. And then I know. And then I was like, oh, here's the second part. And oh, here's the third part. And so for me, at some point when I then eventually got the job and the self-doubt of like, oh, but am I good enough for this? It's like, actually, they hired me to be here. And I see that, especially to my women, I'm like, look, because I have a few women who have started a new job and they go like, but I don't know, like there's so many really skilled people and they're way more intellectual. They've been around for so long. And I'd be like, but they hired you for one specific reason. And it's because you are you and you will bring something to the team that they don't have. And this comes back to the whole thing about being okay with being yourself, because no opportunity is just going to be given to you unless someone wants to give that opportunity to you. And now you can decide that you're not going to be good enough to be there, but that's your story about that. But you can say like, hey, they hired me, so I am good enough. And like, yeah, sure, I'm going to have to bring my A game and take on, learn, but they didn't hire me for no reason. I wasn't put here because someone felt sorry for me.
Yeah.
Like, nah.
It goes back to what you were saying about sort of like the skinny dipping sort of like story, in terms of these negative emotions come in, but they're not necessarily a negative thing. It's about how you rephrase them, how you look at them. When I look at imposter syndrome, like people often let imposter syndrome paralyze them by fear, and like, don't be wrong, imposter syndrome can be a negative if you let it control you, if it stops you taking action, and sometimes that has been me a number of times in my life. But my imposter syndrome is what keeps me pushing. My imposter syndrome is what puts me wanting to do this podcast. It's my imposter syndrome that makes me spend money on courses and meet new people and learn more. That slight dissatisfaction, people think that is a negative. No, it keeps me driven. It keeps me progressing. And if that little voice wasn't there, I wouldn't have had a number of the opportunities I've had. I think sometimes imposter syndrome is a good thing, because it's that sign of it's the workplace or the physique equivalent of my clothes are off, I'm going into the sea. And it's that, okay, I need to make this, I need to act, this is something challenging, this is going to make me grow. And I that's another thing that I've rephrased a lot in other times. Imposter was a big thing for me for years. And sometimes it is, but just looking at it slightly like, this is a good sign. This is a sign that I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, something in part of my Sunday call, my Sunday round table with my clients, the last couple of weeks we've been speaking about a quote from William Shakespeare quite a bit, and what it means and how can we look at life in a more productive way. And what he said is, there is nothing either good nor bad, only thinking makes it so. And I mean, that guy died a long time ago and he was pretty fucking clever. So, if I can go, hey, my life is not good right now, but how could it be good? I could think myself to something good. I feel really blessed that I have been able to do a lot of traveling in my life, or that I made the choice of traveling in my life, because I've obviously seen all sides of the spectrum in terms of how people live in their conditions, and then obviously being quite poor myself in university, so and this is the thing, people in the most poor remote places are the happiest people, right? So thinking makes us so. What we focus on is the quality of our life. So if I want to focus on why my insecurity makes me not good enough, or if I want to focus on why my insecurity is the thing that drives me forward to be better, that's my choice. The fact is still that there's just a thought about something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and you spoke about like energy and like, earlier on at the start of this recording, I think that you know, you do in a way make your own luck by the energy you put out there, the opportunity you come by being the person you are. I remember, and I know it's another story about in a way our old workplace, but it's so ingrained in the who I am over the last 7 years. I remember a period of time, a couple of years into that business, where I was really struggling, looking at kind of leaving out of that, going out of that business. I really wasn't having a nice time, and a lot of things in my life in return that weren't going well at the same time. Like, why is so many things weighing down on me? And then there was like a change in management structure at the time, and nothing changed except that one thing. And I then went into 2 of the best years I had at that place. And my career was good. I had better relations with people I work with. I progressed better. I had more opportunities. That made me realize like nothing's changed. All that one thing changed, gave me a bit of momentum that changed my perspective on something. Then I put in more energy out there in the world. And like that was a very, very key moment for me. It was like, if ever I'm in a bad state, if ever my state is not where I want it to be, what is the easiest and quickest way of changing my state to make me in a better place? If I'm in a better place, I'm going to have a better interaction with the world, and it's going to give more back to me. And I remember, like, after that period of time, if any times things were weighing me down, I'd do things like I give money to someone who's homeless. Like, I've now helped someone bigger than myself. I don't need it, and all of a sudden that helped someone else's life. That helped, and then made me feel better. That changed my state. I'd go into a difficult situation with a renewed outlook and energy, and things went better. And it's like learning those small things of like, how do you change your state is really important. I suppose, because I know in a second you've got your life with your extended family, and I don't want to keep you from those people. But in terms of like almost like finishing off with a bit of quick wins, in sense of like, if you're in a position where you need to change your state, what changes your state? What makes you badass?
Oh, what changes my state and what makes me badass? Tough question. That's a very tough question. What changes my state? I was gonna say something very funny, like, well, my state is always fucking great, but you know what changes the state is actually to accept that you will have ups and downs, and go, cool, I need right now, if I can see that this has a positive meaning, my shitty state, it has a positive intent, then I can learn something from it, and I can take action, whether that is in perception or in physical, then I can do so. Like, for example, like now, the last few weeks, I have really not prioritized my sleep. I'm pretty tired. I can tell that my state is not optimal. So the really good thing that I need to do is actually put in some boundaries and then allow me to sleep a little bit more, right? So having more boundaries. But I think just if you want to do a quick, do something really physical, like actually get moving. The best way to change your state is to do a radical shift in from what you're doing. So if I'm feeling low and I'm lying on my bed and I'm scrolling on my phone, I need to fucking change. Maybe do 10 burpees. I would never do 10 burpees, but I need to do something that isn't that. And I'll probably need to tell someone. Like, I'm a huge believer in actually releasing what you have inside. So and this is why, like, I am very open with how I feel. So I will tell someone how I feel, because that's a way for me to let that emotion out. And if that person is someone that knows me really well and cares for me, they will give me the tough love I need to hear sometimes. Because sometimes we just wallow in things because it's like, whoa. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, oh, that really sucks, man. Oh, great, I feel so much better now. Right? And then sometimes be like, yeah, why are you looking at it that way? Ah, you're right. Fuck, yeah, life is good. So I would say do something radical to change what you're doing. If you find that you haven't been very active, and this is what happens when people they're very slumped over their work, they haven't made time for exercise or walking. It's like, yeah, you're gonna feel shitty because your body is like shitty. So then you need to do something radical, which could be go for a walk or exercise or whatever. But again, just release it by actually express it. Don't suppress anything. Like if there's anything that I don't do, is that I don't suppress anything, which is why I will cry when I watch Pocahontas, and I will laugh when I find the joke actually funny, and I will get angry and pissed off when something really upsets me, and I will voice that. So yeah, expression.
I love that, and I agree with that so much. I think that's the reason why we get on so well, because we're both a bit like that, and I think we've both been in various circumstances life where, like, so we mentioned about being aligned with core values, and like being an expressive person, if you can't be that person, it becomes very, very challenging. And I'm 100% with you, and like people wallow in stuff, and if stuff's in your head, it's often not actually as bad as you're making it out. You tend to catastrophize things in your head. As soon as you get out with some paper or to a friend or something, you realize, is that what I'm worrying about? Or if it is something worthwhile, it's like, oh, okay, how do I sort this? What practice do I need to do? How do I fail forward to do this sort of thing? So I'll let you get off to your tribe. I always love these conversations because neither of us have a filter, and these are always really good, really personal, really good conversations. So thank you again, especially on the lack of sleep, for like setting aside the time for this. For people who want to learn more about you, your tribe, or people who just want to see you naked on Instagram, where can they find you?
So my Instagram handle is the most important one. Just Emily Anger, like the emotion, but I'm not angry, remember? And I guess if people want to check out my non-updated website, it's coachbyanger.com. But I'll reply mostly on Instagram and I guess Facebook as well. I do have a awesome Facebook group, but it's pretty long. It's like high performance mastery group, nutrition, training, fat loss and mindset, something like that. And everyone is more than welcome to join in. It's a pretty active group. So
for the people that want to join Emily's group, maybe message her on Instagram so she can send you the link. That's probably easier than remembering that.
I can definitely copy the link in.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you get to your tribe. Thank you very much again. It's been so much fun, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, you will. Thank you.